back, night hits. Tango in the shadows on attack, coast stack, syntax, fingers moving like a magnet, sublime embedded in the way I counteract. Heartbeat running like a drill sergeant cadence. Every little glitch getting clear with impatience. Stab mode calm, but the streams where the rage is. Hunter in the dark, taking aim at the agents. Boots on the floor with the keyboard's my weapon. Ops in the chat, every viewer gets a lesson. Tech in my veins, every ride I'm addressing. Then I must be tested to delete them in a second. Never been a quitter, I'm a problem architect. Military mindset, keep the chaos in check. Every demon in the dead are getting caught in my net. Tango hunter on the rise, yeah, the systems and that.
Fast pace, no break, runtime overload. Dead string, night shift, tactical mode. Every single challenge getting instantly owed to the soldier in the shadows with the code that explodes.
Eldridge in the runtime, watch them bow. Hey. Hunter in the mainframe, watch them bow. Hey. Discipline and logic make them bow. Hey. Day by day with the night they bow. Every demon process make them bow. Every glitch in memory make them bow. Tango in the system make them bow. Runtime ritual make them bow. Runtime ritual make them bow. Fast like a heartbeat in the combat, stress sharp like a soldier when the squad's under threat. Calm like a father when the world's a mess, but the moment I go live, I'm a certified threat. I bind every breathing, I'm a digital ghost. Under in the code, taking aim at the host. Every little error getting cooked in toast. I'm the dad with the discipline to heal the most. Night ops active, I'm a one-man squad. Streamlights flicker like the wrath of a god. Tech train mind, every line is mod. I'm the glitching matrix at the system outlawed. Hey, Eldritch in the runtime, watch them bow. Hey, Hunter in the mainframe, watch them bow. Hey, discipline and logic make them bow. Hey, day by day but the night they bow. Every demon process make them bow. Every glitch in memory make them bow. Tango in the system make them bow. Runtime ritual make them bow. Runtime ritual make them bow.
Oh hi, thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
My mic didn't unmute itself. There we go. Just go ahead and manually unmute. And I'm going to pull up a playlist real quick. There we go. So we got some lo-fi beats playing in the background. Alright, so I've got the webpage pulled up in front of me. It's going to be Tech Night tonight. So we're going to go over some technologies, and we're going to do a basic overview, and then we're going to dive into stuff. But first, looks like Metallica came in first and checked in, and Jackface checked in. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you. For anybody who's going to be tuning in, we're going to be using VS Code to write our code, and then GitHub to host it. So I've got those pulled up in a browser, as well as my testing environment, and a few other tools that I like to use to help me write code and keep organized and test stuff out too. So, but we're gonna get into stuff. The first thing we're gonna do is just go over what VS Code is, and then GitHub, and how to check your code as you write it. We're not gonna actually get into the code quite yet. We'll get there, but not first thing. So VS Code, you can look it up online. It is completely open source. It's free. Anyone can use it. Hey Claude, how you doing? We're just doing an overview first before we even get started. So I was just saying that the code editor we're going to be using is called VS Code. It's open source, completely free. And there are a ton of extensions, and pretty much all developers everywhere use VS Code. Not all, but like a good 95%. And it's one of the best ones out there, and there's a ton of extensions that people have made that will make your life infinitely easier if you ever plan to write code. And we'll go over some of those too. So VS Code, what we're going to use to write our code. So you can just Google it, and I'll provide links in the Discord as well. Actually, let's link the Discord real quick. Let's pin it. There we go. I went ahead and pinned it up top. So there we go. But we're going to be hosting our code on GitHub. GitHub is also completely free. You can create all of your repositories for all of your code projects here. So when you create an account, your homepage will be pretty much empty. And then where it says like top repositories, you'll hit new. Right? So you get your username, right? And then you're going to name the repository. So if we want to build a Twitch website, you would probably just name it like Twitch. You wouldn't use a username for the repository. You'd use what you're going to make with that repository, right? And then you're going to give it a description.
I remember my first time.
Really? Spam bots? I should turn that off when I'm doing text streams, because that's really annoying. It's funny when it's not text stream though. But anyways, so everything I do I'm going to leave public, so anyone can copy my code straight from the repository, straight from online GitHub. I recommend adding a README. It is optional. You don't have to do it. A README is basically a file that other people will see when they first pull up your repository. And it'll have a description of what your project is about, right? You can also add a git ignore. So a git ignore is an ignore file that will tell GitHub to ignore certain files from the repository. So when you go to push updates, if you have a file listed in the git ignore, that file will not be published publicly, right? And you would use that if you're doing any kind of back-end coding especially, or if you have like private tokens or secret tokens to use for like databases and stuff, because you don't want other people having your tokens to your database, right? You are the only one who needs to have access to that, so you would include that content in a git ignore file. And then a license, I'm not going to use a license, but a lot of people use MIT. Yeah, here MIT is a big one. Another good one is GNU. So, but I don't really care for repositories. And then you'd create it. But I don't need to do that because I already have one. So I just created Twitch, and if I click on it, here's my README. It's very basic. Tango Hunter streaming website, contributors, that's me. And additional information, tutorials and streaming information will be updated as we progress through the project. There's a lot more to GitHub than this, but everything you upload will be here. So like all I've done so far is I've added a CNAME. I'll get to that in a minute. And I've added some images, and you can click on it, and the images are actually here. So the banner image I want to use, which I have a few different banner images, but the one I'm going to use is probably this one. So it kind of goes with my theme. But then I've also got like profile pictures. So my original one, and then the new one that I'm using now, I can include those on the website. And then if I go to, like, I'm going to use a horizontal rule, so I'll use like the dog tags, like a horizontal rule to go across the bottom of the page for the footer. See, everything you post to GitHub will be accessible, so just something to keep in mind. GitHub is free, and you can use GitHub to host your website for free. You don't have to pay for it. So if you go into settings, and there's a lot of settings here, right? So familiarize yourself with them, and it tells you, like, there's tutorials, like it tells you what things do. Like there's a good knowledge base here, right? So if we go down to pages, you'll be able to publish it. So you'd want to select the branch. In a developmental world where multiple people are working on a project, you'll have multiple branches. You'll have a pre-production branch, a testing branch, and a production branch. And pre-production is what all of the contributors, so all the developers who are working on the product, are pushing their updates to. And then once they are done with pre-production, they'll move it into testing, and it's going to have to go through some peer reviews, and they're going to do some online testing and stuff. And a lot of it's done with AI now, so I'm not going to get too involved in that. And then once it passes testing, it'll move on to production. If it fails testing, then obviously it's going to go back to pre-production, and they're going to have to work on it again. So there's a big process there. But for a small product where we're just doing front end only, a static website, main branch is perfectly fine. You don't have to get that involved. And then always keep it on root. You can change it if you want to add a different folder. Like you can do a docs folder. You can also select a folder, like search for one, if you want to have all of your web pages in a folder, which I'll show you guys that too. But anyways, so then it would be live, and this right here wouldn't be here. It would be your site was live at https your username .github.io / and then the repository name. Right. The reason mine says this is because I paid $1 for a domain website on Namecheap. Right. It cost me $1. It is, I think, $12 a year renew. $12 a year for a website is not that bad. Right. So that's why mine says Tango Hunter. Right. And I've gone through and I've added the CNAME for it. And I've added all of the necessary requirements to allow it to pass a DNS check and use my custom domain name, which I have listed here, tangohunter.com. Right. So if I hit manage domain, I'm not going to scroll down because my personal information is down there. Withheld for privacy protects my personal information so other people cannot access it. And then, so if this website is active from March 24th this year to March 24th next year, and I can add years and auto renew it. Whatever you do, keep this on. Like, don't let your personal information leak out there. You don't need to buy premium DNS. You don't need to do that. The basic DNS is perfectly fine. DNS is domain name service, so that your website, when it's hosted, people can find it by just typing it in without knowing the IP address. That's totally different, but we're not going to get into how IP addresses work. So, but under advanced DNS is where I have everything set up. Whenever it loads. Try clicking again. Okay, it's not going to let me do it. Anyways, that's where the settings would be for GitHub, right? So you'd link everything to GitHub here, and then on the GitHub pages, you'd go into your settings, and you'd link it there, and then you'd also link it here under custom domain. This is the last step, though. This right here is the last step. You do everything else first. So you do, oh, here it is. Right, so all this information right here can be found. Hey, Claudia, I see you. All this information, these IP addresses, can be found in Help Center knowledge base. Right? So all you have to do, this got stuff in there from when I was searching for sound bites. So we'll type in GitHub. Right? And how do I link my domain to GitHub pages? Right? There's a video. The video shows you what to do. A record for @ pointing to this IP address, and there are 4 of them. And then a CNAME record pointing to the following value, username.github.io. Right? So if you look, I've got those 4, and I've got the CNAME record. www, right, and then tangohunter.github.io for the GitHub pages, right? There is another one in there, but I don't want to click on it because it has like identifying information. But that one you would find under GitHub pages. You would go here, settings, and then is it pages? Yeah, right here, right? So you would like add a domain, right, and whatever that domain is. Let's say .com, right? Hit add domain, and then you would copy this, right? And you would paste that in the host, right? It's going to be called it's going to be a note, right? And then you would paste your value, right? The reason I don't want to click it is because this would be visible, So I'm not clicking that because I don't want that to be out there live or posted on YouTube, right? But that information, again, can be found in the knowledge base, right? So, and then hit verify. It says it takes 24 hours, took 10 minutes, right? So we're gonna go back to pages, and we're gonna delete this one. Right, boom. Verified pages deleted. Cool. All right, we're gonna go back home. All right, so that's how you would link them. It's not difficult. The knowledge base tells you all the steps. Manage, add the record. These are the records you have to add, and the CNAME record, right? Save the changes, and then delete the default settings. All right, because these are going to conflict with the records you created. Right, you don't need a redirect because you've got these, and you don't need another CNAME because you've got this one. Right, and then there's comments down there from other people from years ago when this was first created. Anyways, we're moving on. So Namecheap is a good one. You don't have to use Namecheap. That's just what I used. I'm going to go ahead and close that one out. And then if you want to learn different HTML, CSS, or JavaScript tools, because these are the three languages that every website is built on everywhere: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML is hypertext markup language. It is the content that every page is on every page. So all the text, all the images, all of the different grids here, like this grid here and this grid here, all of that content, right? CSS is how it's styled. So the size of this text, the color of the backgrounds here, the color of these backgrounds, how wide these containers are, right? All that information, right? And then JavaScript is what happens, like it's interactivity. So what happens when a user edits the code in here, what's going to happen? And it's going to update this right here. So you'll update this. Like, let's just delete some of the text. Boom, right? So it's a live updater, right? So that's what JavaScript is. And then you can click on stuff and do like tags, and you'll be able to learn all the different tags that are in JavaScript, right? You can search for tags. You can do HTML5, so you can see certain things, like footer, right? So it'll tell you what a footer is, tell you how to use that. So you've got a header, right? You've got articles, sections, asides, and then footer at the bottom, right? It tells you how to use certain things. And then same thing for CSS. There is a cheat sheet, and then JavaScript has the same thing. There's a cheat sheet in there too. So there's a lot of content here, right? There's even different characters you can use in Java and HTML. So a lot of cool stuff in there. But you can use that. And again, I will link these things in the Discord. But I'll close that tab. So W3 markup validation, if you want to check your code for errors, you can do it here. It'll tell you if there are errors in the HTML code. And you can do it just by copying and pasting from your editor into here and hit check, or you can do it by file, or you can do it by a URL. So there's that. And then if you want other validators, there's CSS. Here we go. You can also do CSS validators, right? By the URL, upload, or by direct input. So there's that one. This next one's pretty cool. So I'm not a designer, but everything you do in CSS, all of the colors that you select have to be coded, whether it's hex or RGB or HSL, which is hue, saturation, lightness. All of those things you can use, right? I do not recommend you trying to use these ones. HSV is hue, saturation, and value. Very similar to HSL, but HSL works like a color wheel, and I'll show you that in a minute. HSV works as like a three-dimensional cone, so the values are a little different. I don't know what this one is. I've heard of it. I don't really use it. And then cyan, maroon, yellow, and I forget the K. but we're not going to use that either. So these three are the primary ones that you will see developers use. Most people will use either hex or RGB. HSL is kind of new, but a lot of people really like it because if you understand color theory, HSL is going to be really perfect. And if you don't, HSL is still easier to edit than these two, right? And I'll show you why. So let's just really quick, we'll go to the wheel. All right, so HSL works, hue is the color, right? So you select the color first. Like let's say you want it green, right? Saturation is like this one here, where 100% saturation is the color itself, and then as you get closer to 0, it becomes gray, right? So you get gray. Okay, so you get 100% saturation, and then gray would be 0%, right? So, and then the last one is lightness. So 0 is black, 100% is white, and then 50% is in the middle, right? And it works, the first number being the hue works as though you're in a circle, right? Circles have 360 degrees, so 0, 60, 120, and then we're back at 0 again, or 360, right? So if you want to do like a yellow, you would do like, I don't know, 30 degrees, right? But let's say you wanted like just a lightly different shade, you go like 31 degrees or 32, right? You could just edit that one value and keep the lightness and the saturation the same. So it makes it a little easier. And then you can see these numbers up here change as we like edit stuff. So like I said, black being 0, right? It's zeros for everything. And then white being 100%. Let me see if I can find it. 100%. Yep, 100%, or 100% of all the colors, or just FFF, 100% of every value. So, because hex uses eighth ref, 0 through 9, eighth ref. So, but yeah, so that's pretty much the color theory. And then this I just use to convert RGB to hex, or vice versa, primarily. But you can also use it for HSL codes. It's just a neat tool. And then the last one. So Trello is, a lot of developers will use either Trello or Canva or something similar to that to create a list. Hey Bill, thank you for checking in. We're just going over some stuff to get started on code. Thank you for the hydrate. I'm doing well. Thank you for the lurk.
Okay.
Anyways, so if you have multiple people working on a project, you would share this board with them, right? You could share it. And then as people do stuff, they would check it off, right? So let's say you want to assign something to somebody, you would just put in the notes who it's assigned to, and then when they complete it, they would just complete it. And then boom, it's done. Like that, their task is done. So you'd have multiple tasks set up, and you could do like a today or this week or later, right? So people can kind of work at their own pace. Or let's say they have a deadline for today, or deadline of the week, whatever their deadlines are, right? And you can change these. These are default. These three. There's also a way to consolidate your inboxes and your messaging services. So if you use Slack or Microsoft Teams in a corporate environment, you can use this to consolidate your messaging services and your emails. So it's just a neat tool. And this is everything that I plan on doing. I'm probably going to change it a little bit, but yeah, so this is my Trello board, so you guys get a little sneak peek. All right, so moving on, we've gone over VS Code, we've gone over GitHub, and we've gone over some of the tools, extra tools, right? Let's actually get into an overview of what the website's going to look like.
A large party?
So I've got two different overviews. One is just kind of generic, which is this one. So we've got like my theme, right? There's a player playing my stream in the background, right? And then like stream categories, monthly text streams. It is not going to be like this. This is very default, very generic. I just kind of threw this together, and you can see like different sizes of different content and how it's set up, right? And then if like somebody clicks something, it's going to jump down. What I'm going to do is set up a scroll to smooth, so that it doesn't just jump, so it scrolls down to it really smooth, like so instead of jumping like that. And then there'll be a return to top after each section. So, but this is the overall theme, and then this will be selectable. So if somebody doesn't like dark theme, they can select light theme, right? The default's going to be dark because that fits my colors, but it's also going to be selectable based on user's preference. So if you're a web browser, if you have light theme selected, it'll load light theme default. If you have dark theme selected, it'll be dark theme default. If you don't have any theme selected, it'll be dark theme. And then whatever you select, it'll stay that way every time you load the website, right? And then the other thing I've tested is what I want my site to look like. So I've got this other banner image that I didn't like, but I had it. Again, the toggle theme, right? So there's a terminal here. I'm going to refresh this terminal. Right? You see that like, cool animation that it's doing? So it's pulling my real stats, right? So I'm currently streaming stats to probably current viewers too. We've been doing this for 27 minutes and we haven't even touched code yet. So, and then what my horizontal rule is going to look like, I might resize this to make it a little smaller. And then here's my color palette that I've selected. So dark theme, we're going to have a dark background with a secondary accent color. Thank you for shouting, Bill out. Appreciate that. Our main accent color, our secondary accent color, main text color, and our secondary text color. So like for headings or for basic text. And then if we do like a light theme, it's a different color palette, right? Yeah. And these values, these colors will change as I go. But that's just like kind of like default. So I just thought it was cool. I liked the terminal window idea. It was just something I thought of, and it's pretty neat. So, and then there's a live now banner. So if I'm not live, this wouldn't be here, right? And you click watch now, and it'll pull it up on Twitch. Yeah, it just pulled up my stream. So I thought that was kind of neat. Anyways, we'll close that out. So let's move on. So Nate, you get a kind of good idea on what things are going to look like.
When you think about it,
So I'm going to, I'll close this out just so it's not running in the background. This is my testing environment, hence the name of here, testing environment, with all of the stuff that I've done. There's not a whole lot here. So, but we're going to redo this kind of stuff, but I just had it pulled up so that we could go over that stuff. What I am going to do is pull up another window for VS Code. When you launch VS Code the first time, this is kind of what you're going to get. It's going to be very bland. There might be like a release update for like newer versions or whatever, but you'll have your extensions off to the side. So I have some extensions installed already. So MongoDB is a database, ThunderClient is for API calls, and then there's a GitHub. So we'll go over the GitHub one in a minute. But if you go to extensions,
you can still stand up there.
Some of the ones you're going to want would probably be like auto name tag, code spell checker. You won't need EJS unless you're doing Node. GitHub pull requests is good. HTML boilerplate, highly recommend. Highly recommend. It'll make loading or creating the top of your web page easier. HTML and CSS support, IntelliSense. So to kind of help you identify what certain tags or what certain elements do. It's pretty neat. You don't need Python stuff. We're going to move on past that. Or Jupyter renders. We don't need that. Live preview. Again. Actually, no. Live server. Live preview is neat, but like live preview is if you're doing a local server. But live server is what you really want. So, and I'll explain that in a minute. That's how I was able to load those web pages. I was doing it with live server. And it's just, I would right click it and hit open in default tab, and boom, live server would load it up. You don't need MongoDB. You don't need IntelliSense or NPM
Yeah.
anyways. Prettier is another really good one. So that is going to highlight your code to be certain colors, so it'll be easier to read. So, and VS Code icons is neat too. So that one I'll show you here in a minute.
Yeah.
So those are the basic extensions.
Right.
Again, I do recommend having a GitHub linked
Mm-hmm.
in your like install the extension. And installing is very, very easy. You would literally just search for the extension, like code spell checker, and then install. Right, and then it's installed, and it tells you what it does. And almost all of them have like some videos that show you, and what languages. Like, there's so much information here. I'm not gonna go over all of it. You probably won't either, if you do this. But anyways, so let's open up a folder first.
Yeah.
Streaming,
Yeah.
coding, Tango Hunter, select folder. Boom. There's
So
my folder.
I would just
Right.
have to,
So there's images, there's my CNAME record,
Oh.
my README, and my workspace settings.
figure out
Right.
like with Charlotte, like
I had a placeholder in the images folder. I deleted that. Anyways,
I mean,
so now we can
my
start creating stuff. Right.
Watcher, but like
So the first thing we're going to do
the unplugged
is
thing.
create our...
It's Mr. 305 checking in for the remix.
What's up, Ash? How you doing?
Just for the ceremony.
We're just going over how to create a website. So we're going over some of the basics first. I've gone over a few things already, but we're going to get into the creating our workspace setup, right? So I've already got like an images folder. So let's open the terminal. It's easier in the terminal. You don't have to do it this way. You can do it by selecting icons here, right? If you don't know which directory you're in, it tells you. Like, we're encoding Tango Hunter, right? But let's change directory, CD, and we want to be in the Twitch directory. Right, boom. Now we're in the Twitch directory, and then we're going to make directory, MD, and we're going to add one for styles. Right, boom. And that just created a folder called styles. Right, and we'll do it again. Make directory, scripts,
Yeah.
getting a snack. Alright, cool. Thank you for doing the shout out for Ashbourne as well.
Yeah.
So, and then let's say you wanted to create a file through the terminal. You could do that. You would just make sure you're in the right directory first. So we're in the Twitch directory, so we would just type in code. This only work in VS Code. If you're in like the CLI, command line interface, or like a terminal window outside of VS Code, you would want to use like whatever create tool utility that CLI uses. But in VS Code, it's code, right? And then we're going to do index.html, right? And it has automatically created index.html, and it is, where to put it?
I'm glad it
I
went
don't even see it.
well. I mean, it sounds like it went well. And I know.
Maybe because I don't have anything in here.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's put some content in here and save it. So we're going to do HTML,
And this
right?
is new Sonata,
And
you
there's the
said?
boilerplate, right? So we're just going to add that HTML5, and then
Should
boom.
just get married on the
Right.
beach.
This has got our document type HTML, our HTML code, and I still don't see the file in there. What if I hit save? There it is. That's why. Now it's saved. Now it's in there, right? The U
Yeah.
means untracked, right? So it has not been tracked in GitHub yet. And you'll see U for untracked, you'll see M for modified. So, and you'll see a dot in the folder that any updates have been pushed into. Anyways, HTML we're coding in English, right? The head of the HTML document. So there's meta tags. We've got a character set UTF-8. That is the default set of characters that all web browsers use for all languages, right? Or all written languages, all modern languages. So whether you are viewing this on a web browser in, like, let's say Chinese, this will allow it to translate English content to Chinese. Not all characters will translate properly, especially when you have letters that don't exist in certain languages. But for the most part, it's a universal translator.
I mean, it's just the ceremony, right?
And then there's a viewport content width equals device width, initial scale 1 out of 0, right? So what this is going to do is it's going to make the web page open, and the size of the web page will be the width of your document will be the size of that page. I don't know how to describe that. Let's say you're viewing it on a phone. You'll view it at 100% on the phone. You'll view the page based on the width 100%, right? So everything's going to be smushed down to fit on the size of the screen size on the phone. Whereas on a desktop computer, it'll be full screen, right? And we can change that, and we will change that. We'll update that so it makes more sense, right? Because we don't want to push things down on a phone. And then like the document title. So we're gonna rename it the title to be me, right? Because this is my website that we're building, right? So you can name your title whatever you want. All right. So now that we have like the head of our document created, our HTML document, we have to add a few things. So the first thing we have to do, which let me actually pull up. I closed the web browser. Yes, I did. That's okay. Let me do something different real quick.
Okay.
Because I want to make this as easy as possible on me while we're doing this.
I will say I
Here it
do
is.
like that my
Open up a second coder on my other monitor.
Besides the 3 for March, it's 1716.
This way I can kind of copy stuff as I go. Perfect. There we go. All right.
Yeah. No, I mean ours was supposed to be 19. The 19.
All right. Cool. So we can close the chat. We're not chatting with AI, and we can close the terminal. Jesus. All right. So before we get into anything else in our main HTML file, let's create a couple of the files. So we're going to come to our styles folder. We can right click, hit new file, and it's going to be styles.css, right? And then we have to have something in here, just some kind of content. So what I'm going to do is do our universal selector, right, inside of brackets. And we are going to do a few different things. So first it's going to be scroll behavior, and we want smooth, right? All web browsers have default settings, and they are all different. Some of them are the same, but most of them are different. So by doing the universal selector,
I mean, why couldn't
we're
they
able
do
to
it now?
override some of those default stylings. And the worst one used to be Internet Explorer, which has now been depreciated. No one uses that anymore, hopefully.
Wow.
But like Safari, Opera, Firefox, Chrome, they're all gonna have default settings, and so this kind of like makes it overrides all those settings. They have different margins, different paddings.
Sure, Walter and I went.
So we're just gonna override some of those settings. We're gonna make scroll behavior smooth, which that'll also help when we click a link and it scrolls down
I mean, a
the
year,
page instead of
obviously.
snapping to it. Let's also do border box.
But I'm pretty sure we did go.
Is it border box or is it box?
Okay.
Box sizing. There it is. Box sizing border box. There we go. It's been a while since I've done this. And then margin 0 can't type. Padding 0. Alright, and you'll notice that after every selector, I have a colon, and then a description, and then a semicolon. Alright, that is the correct syntax. Syntax is important, and order is important. HTML, CSS, JavaScript are read from the top down. If the syntax is incorrect in something at the top, it will have adverse reactions to everything underneath of it. Right? Some things not so much, but anytime you have a parent, like this is going to be a parent of everything,
Well, they have to be in
and
notary,
then
right?
you have children of the parent. So you'll
So
have
if someone
content
goes
within
notarize
content.
that,
And
there's
so the
a
main
witness
content page will be
involved.
like a parent, and then whatever content you have inside of that would be like a child of that. And so if you mess up in your parent, it'll adversely affect everything inside of that parent, so everything inside of it. And I'll explain that in more detail when we get to it. Parents and children in HTML and CSS. I'm going to add a couple spaces here because we're going to add some defaults, or not default, but some comments in here, right? And we're going to do the same thing on our HTML page, which I'll just do that now. So if you want to do a code comment in HTML, that is the correct format, right? So the name of this file
Which cousin?
is going to be index.html, right? Author is going to be me, right? The date created is going to be today, right? Date modified will also be today,
Oh yeah.
right? And then description. And this is the landing page for the Twitch streamer Tango Hunter, right? Doesn't have to be elaborate, right? But this kind of gives anyone who loads the page, this is the first thing they're going to see at the top of the page. Not on a web browser, but if they open it in a code editor, right? This will be visible. They'll say, oh, Tango Hunter created it. These date was created, it's modified, and description, right? Not every page is going to be intuitive enough, which is why you have to have descriptions for certain things. Because you might have
Yeah.
a website with like 700 pages. So you're going to want descriptions, you're going to want comments on things so that anyone editing that code knows what they're editing. It is a good practice, right? So like if I was to come in here, I would just do a code comment and we would put
I do have to
like
log in, I think,
meta
and do
tags,
the
right?
last,
I don't need to do that because anyone who writes code knows what these are,
yeah,
right? So we're just going to delete that,
the weekly ones.
right? But we do have to link our style sheet, right? The style CSS that we made. So let's go ahead and link that. Now that we've created it and we actually have some content in here
But wasn't
and it's
there was
saved,
one
let's
more
link
week?
these two pages, right? So in the head of the document, underneath the title, we're going to enter, and we're just going to space some of this stuff out. So
Yeah. So then this would be the
There we go.
last week for the weekly challenge.
actually, no, I don't want a space there. We'll just leave it like that. Oh, an indentation.
Yeah, I'm saying is I don't.
So
I think I missed this week. I don't know if I even did last week.
actually, yeah, let's backspace that. Let's do a proper indentation for this stuff. Boom. There we go. All right. So the document
Okay.
being HTML. Hold on.
Maybe I'll do that
Get over here.
after.
There we go.
Separate-
HTML
separate
document.
for the lecture
Actually, no, that's
so-
not. I had it right the first time. HTML document. The head of the document is within this. So, like, the head of the document is a child of the HTML document, right? The body
Okay.
of this document is a child of the HTML document. I don't know if that makes sense, right? But the body of it lies within the HTML tags,
Right.
right? So it's gonna be the same thing here, where we link our style sheet. So we would just want to do a link, right? And we're going to link it. So href is link. It's going to tell us where the file is. So it's a reference, right? And it's going to be in styles. And if you look, it already starts typing it, right? And so boom, I can select it, right? And now we have to tell it what relationship that styles document has to this HTML document, right? So just because we linked it doesn't mean it knows what it is, right? So it has a relationship. So rel equals, it automatically puts the quotes in, and we're going to say it is a style sheet, right? And then slash end bracket, right? So you always have to have an end bracket, whether it's an ending tag or it's an ending bracket, right? Some of them don't, like the meta tags don't, but like the title has an opening bracket and a closing bracket, right?
I remember my first
Goes
time.
into it. Hello, Noel. Noel Austin. How you doing? We're going over how to code a website. So we just linked our style sheet to our HTML code. This page is empty. You're doing fine. Well, I hope you're doing better than fine. So thank you for coming in. So for now, that's everything I want to add to. Thank you for doing the shout outs. Appreciate it. You're less playing the operator. Also, thank you for the follow. I was going to say, we are going to add some more stuff to the head of the document, but we're not going to do that now. The next thing I want to add is going to be our script file, right? So we're going to add a new file to scripts, and we're just going to call it script.js. Gotta make sure he's hydrated. Thank you. That's good because I'm talking a lot. So with script.js, you're naming what you name files, you want to name them in a manner that makes sense. So if other people see the files, they know what they're going to be editing. Since we're doing a static website that's going to be very small, having a script file named script is adequate. What are you making, like what type of website? And we'll have a backend. So this won't have a backend, it's going to be a static website. So there is going to be some JavaScript in it, but it's going to be mainly for like a theme selector, and then there's going to be a mobile menu that will be activated through JavaScript, and then there's also going to be some cool like text effects, and that's going to be done through JavaScript. But there won't be any backend code, no databasing. I'm not going to store any user information, nothing like that. So, and then we're going to create a title for this too. So to make titles in JavaScript, it's slash and then 2 stars. What are they? Asterisks, right? And then we're going to hit enter, and we're going to the name of the file, scripts.js, right? Or no, the title, I should say, not the name. Title, author, date created today, date modified, and that is also going to be today, right? And then we're not going to really add any content in here yet. Maybe I'll just do, we'll do constant, right? So we'll just create a variable, const, right? Const is a constant, and we're going to make equals, but name the variable, right? Username. So constant username equals, it's gonna have the value, right? It's going to be a string, so we have to do it in quotes. And it's going to be my name, Tango _ Hunter. That's my Twitch username, and then semicolon. So there are two ways to declare variables. There's const and there's let. That's fun. Do you have a website, GitHub profile? I'm just curious because I do full stack web dev. So I created one for this. I went over that earlier. I don't have it open anymore. But I will link it in my Discord, which should be pinned at the top of the page here. Or maybe not. Did it unpin itself? Let me... Discord... Pin message... Manually... Hide for myself. There it goes. Now it should be pinned. So all of this content will be in the Discord. I'll have it in the top section, probably under tech streams. My Discord is small. I'm a small streamer. But anyways, I was saying syntax matters and order matters, right? So any variables that we're going to use in the document, you want to declare those variables before you make any functions for them, or you want to declare them in the beginning of the function. So, and to make it make sense, so let's say you are learning English, right? And someone uses a word that you don't know, right? So you would ask them, what is that word? Like, what does that mean, right? And they're going to tell you what that word is. It's the same thing here, right? You're telling this JavaScript document, hey, username is this value, right? So username is Tango Hunter. So every time I call username, it's going to automatically know it's for Tango Hunter, right? And that will make more sense as we go, because if you copy my code to make your own website, you don't have to rewrite Tango Hunter 100 times, right? You would just change at the top under username, and then the username value would automatically be populated with that value when the page loads, right? So you're only using it once, and then the rest of the document can just use username, and then you won't have to type in your username or replace my username with yours in the whole rest of the document, right? Hopefully that makes sense for anybody who's not into coding. You have to learn variables if you're going to do any coding, especially with object-oriented languages like JavaScript. So JavaScript can be very hard to learn for new people, but it's one of the easier ones to learn. It just has a learning curve, but once you learn it, it's not bad. Anyways, HTML and CSS are much easier. The syntax is much easier to follow. Like you have just whatever element you're trying to define, and then like how do we want this role behavior to act? We want it to be smooth, right? We want our margins to be 0. We want our padding to be 0. So like it's very, very simple, and the more you do this, the easier it's going to get. And the HTML, you've got a title opening tag, what is the title, and then title closing tag, right? So hopefully that kind of makes sense. But now that we have our script and our styles, and our script is, or our style sheet is here now, let's go ahead and add our script file, right? So we're going to do it in the body tab. We want it to be at the very bottom. So I'm going to create a few enter tabs here, enter things. And the reason we want it at the very bottom is because we want our content on the page to load first, and then our scripts to load after the content loads. You can put your script anywhere in the file you want, but it's the standard to put it at the bottom, right? Because if your script is not right, your content won't be loaded correctly. Oh, I can't type. Scripts. All right, the source for our script file, so src equals, and it's going to be script.js, right? And then closing tag comes right after it. And you see how mine automatically did that? That's because I have the extension for that installed. All right, the extensions we went over in the beginning. And if anybody does add VS Code and they want to know the extensions, it'll be in the VOD, but you can also just message me, and I'll go over which extensions you're gonna want. So, and that's one of the ones that makes your life infinitely easier. Infinitely. Yes, IntelliSense. So, actually, IntelliSense does. Is that IntelliSense? I thought IntelliSense told you, like when you hovered over stuff, it tells you what it is. Right? Isn't that what this is? This description up here? I think. Here, let me check. Now I gotta check. I believe it could be anything really. See, I don't know now. IntelliSense. Huh. Maybe it is IntelliSense. Okay. Yeah, no, IntelliSense, it does tell you. Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. It does do references and stuff. But then Prettier is one that I highly recommend everyone use. And VS Code icons too. Which that one's not really necessary, but it does help. Editor configure. No, it's different. Okay. Code splitter. Auto rename tag. See, I don't know. I have too many auto rename. Yeah, it is auto rename. Yeah. So when you close the tag, it'll automatically create the closing tag. Yeah, I've got a lot in there. Probably more than I need. But yeah, I've done a lot of Python. ThunderClient's really good for API calls. So MongoDB for databases. So HTML boilerplate. So, but yeah, Prettier. So actually, here, let's go over Prettier first. So, do you see how const is red and the username is this shade of blue and the value is this shade of blue? Without Prettier, this would all be gray or white. I think it's all white by default. Use WebStorm, and it's a good trade-off for it being heavy. We got the TV going off in the background. So yeah, Prettier just makes everything prettier. Yeah. It makes the content look nicer. It's easier to read, and it's easier on your eyes. So, all right. So let's get into some of the basic content that we're going to create. So the first thing I'm going to do is I don't like using the body tag to set values. I guess I will. Yeah, we'll do the body tag. Usually I do like a div for main and have all my content in main, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the main div separate from like the header and the footer. It's not even going to be a div, it's going to be a main element is what it is. Anyways, so let's start with a header, right? So we're going to have a header, and the header is going to have an image in it. And then right below that, we're going to have our nav. So our navigation links. Alright, and then below that will be our main content. Right, and then below our main content will be our footer. Right, and so this just created the basic layout for how we're going to. Whoops, no, come on. What did I do? Messed up my thing. Why does it have? There. I'm messing stuff up. Right, and so the reason I like to do spaces is so then I'll come in and this makes having codes or having comments makes it easier to find for me. So Oh, hold on. Main content. This is like so extra. You don't have to do this. I just like to. So when I'm scrolling through stuff, and what I'll do is like, we'll put this in like the middle of the page. Right, so it stands out. And there's a reason I do that. It just, for me, when I'm scrolling through, like, so if you have a document, like an HTML document, that is like, let's say it's 1,000 lines, right? And all of your and all of your comments are in line with your tags, they're hard to find sometimes. But by putting them out in the middle, if most of my content fades off over here, this will stand out to me. And oh, my header's here, my navigation's here, because my navigation, my header might be really big, or my navigation might be really big, because I'm gonna have two different sections inside the nav, one for regular navigation and then one for mobile navigation, because we're going to code this desktop first and mobile second, right? So we're going to reformat our styling, and our style sheet is going to reformat our content to fit on the size of a phone screen. So because we're going to develop it with the intention of it being on a desktop screen, right? So the first thing we're going to put in our header, though, we're going to do an image. Image. Source. Equals. And it's going to be in the images folder. Images. And we want my banner image. Right? Anytime you have an image, you should also have alt text. So ALT. And what alt text does is so that if someone is using, let's say, a screen reader to, I don't want to say view your website, because usually if they're using a screen reader, they're blind, but they're using a screen reader to navigate your website, the alt text will tell them what that image is, right? So it's an accessible way for people who are differently able to access the content of your website, right? So the alt text will give them the description of what that image is when they tab over to it, right? Because people with screen readers use the tab button, they don't use the mouse, because they either can't see or their seeing is less, and it's easier for them to just use the tab button, right? Alt text shown when the photo doesn't load. Yes, that's true too. I didn't even think about that. So if the photo doesn't load, it just has the basic like placeholder image of the photo, and the alt text will be displayed. So that's a good point. So for this one, it's just going to be Dingo Hunter's banner image includes a woodland forest theme with military, if I can type, military dog tags, and is it? It's just supposed to be a space there. I don't know, I guess there is. Oop. Dog tags and compound bow firing an arrow. Done, right? Tanner's banner image includes a woodland forest theme with military dog tags and compound bow firing an arrow, right? So it's very basic, very generic, but it kind of gets the idea across of what my theme is, right? The other things we're going to have in here, we're going to have two different, maybe, I'm going to have two different images in here, two different buttons, one for the mobile navigation, which will be down here. Yeah, that's okay. I'll leave it there. So we're going to do, hold on. Forgot the closing tag there. All right. We're actually going to put it above the image because they're going to be at the top of the page. And they're going to be like kind of over the image. So we're going to give this a class too. So before the alt text, we'll do class equals, what do I want to class it as? Banner image. Yeah. Banner dash image. Right. That'll make sense when we do our CSS styling on why we put the class there. Basically, it allows us to style this image without using the image tag. Right. But we're going to create 2 buttons. But right now, those buttons aren't going to do anything. I'm going to create 1 button there and 1 button right below it. Right. So one of them, we're going to give it an ID of mobile menu, and the other one we're going to give an ID, and we're going to call this one the theme toggle. Right. So I'm going to save this real quick and I'll show you live server. Right. So open the live server, and it's like the only thing that's here right now is this image, and those 2 buttons are like behind the image. Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to style this so that they are in front of the image. Right. This image will be centered and it's going to be 1200 pixels wide. Right. And our entire document will be 1200 pixels wide, so we'll have like these bars on the side, but they won't really be visible. It's just going to make everything easier to scale down, so that when we do flexible reactiveness for like different size screens, like tablets and phones, things kind of scale down smoothly. Right. So if I set the maximum size to like 1200 or 1600 pixels, we're not trying to squish down that much content down to like a 600 pixel phone screen, if that makes sense. Right. So plus our background's not even in here yet, so we're going to create that next. This kind of gives you an idea, right? So like we have some content. So that's going to be it for the header. The footer, we're going to put an image in the footer too. That's going to be image. Source. I can't type images. And we want the dog tag horizontal. Right. Go to class. Black and yellow in the house. What's how you guys doing? We're coding a website right now. So far we're just doing some very basic stuff, getting our overall layout down. Not much is going to be live today. Next week we're going to get a whole lot more coding done. I spent a good 45 minutes going over some of the basics before I even got into this. I am good, I'm good. Thank you for asking. Thank you for doing the shout out, Claude. Much appreciated. How are you guys doing tonight? Alright, so we got our footer image in there, our dog tags, and then we have a class footer image, alright, and the alt text. Alright, so this is going to be a horizontal rule that displays dog tags on a chain. There's not much another way I could describe that. And then we're going to do the closing bracket, an inline closing bracket. Right, images you can do that on. Thanks for the shout. Do you need like a domain for a website? Yes, you do. So like here, so now that we have this much of the page built, which there's not much, open a live server, all we have is our banner image and our horizontal rule in here. We don't have our background selected yet, the colors, and we don't have everything centered yet. It's very, very basic, right? But we have something, right? And you can see it's locally on my computer, right? But what I can do, now that we have some content here, what I can do is, usually I would do this through the terminal, but for anyone who has not done anything through terminals before, that can be kind of difficult. I could also do it through the GitHub extension, but if you download the GitHub app, this is really, really good for beginners. So this is all front end, so this can be HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Honestly, I don't really have a preference. I have more experience with JavaScript and Python. I am trying to learn C#, but I just don't have the time for it. But yeah, so like most of the stuff I've done is going to be JavaScript, TypeScript, Python, mostly front end or full stack stuff, and most of it is not terribly difficult for me because I've been doing it for a while. So, but if you use the GitHub app, what is easiest about this is that for new users, it gives a visual representation of the code. Ever thought about being a professor in college? I have not. I taught for 2 years in elementary school and decided it was not for me. So my wife has been teaching for almost 20 years. So, yeah. And she's going to be giving it up this year. Her school's closing. Right now she teaches 2nd grade. So, but yeah. So, teaching's really cool. It's a lot of fun, but it's also one of the hardest jobs in existence, and it is very underappreciated. Yeah. Like my mom before she retired, yeah. At least my little AI bot wasn't too rude that time. Sometimes it can be kind of rude. So one of the things I like about using the GitHub app is the visual representation it gives too, right? You will have to do what's called a fetch before you can do any kind of code pushes. It targets everybody, but it seemed to target you this time for some reason. So if there's errors, it'll be red. Or if you have like 2 people trying to work on the same file, if you don't do a pull before you edit the code and try to push it, you get conflicts because they might have changed something and you might have changed something, and it's going to say, hey, this doesn't match. What they've done and what you've done is not the same, and you're going to get conflictions, and that'll show up red. So anytime you're going to work on a project with other people, you have to do a pull versus fetch. You have to refresh this before you start coding, right? And you have to communicate with your peers. Hey, I worked on this today. I pushed my updates through. And then when someone else works on it, they will do that pull request before they start working on it, right? So anything that shows in red is either deleted or there's an error, right? And the same thing, right? So there's not a whole lot of content in these yet, but they've all been created and everything is green. So that means we are good to go. There's no errors, right? So a summary is required anytime you're going to commit an update to push through to GitHub. Get used to these descriptors because this is the description that GitHub uses. So we need a summary for the commit, right, to the main branch. All right, so our summary is repository created and files created, right? So we created the files, we haven't done a whole lot in them yet, just added some images and some very basic one line in the script and one thing in the styles folder, right? You can do a description if you want. I don't really care because I don't need to descript that. I already have a summary. So we're going to commit it, right? once you commit it, you can do multiple commits, right? Before you push your updates, right? But once you have what you have committed, you can then push it to the origin, like push origin, right? We're gonna push it to GitHub. Now it's been pushed. So now, if we open up Chrome again, why is it? It's showing the bookmarks bar. It's not supposed to. Anyways, GitHub, right? Container 100 switch, right? Just now, it tells me when the last commit was in the scripts file, the styles folder, and index.html, right? And it tells me what the summary was, right? So this is version control, right? You can go back and see how many commits you've done. I've done 17, which isn't much, but every time I've changed something, it does what's called a commit, right? And most of those 17 are going to be in the images folder because I have every single one of these was uploaded separately. But yeah, and then the CNAME was done, which actually the CNAME was done like 3 different times. Do you upload your tech videos? I do. They are in my Discord. My Discord was pinned. Why is it unpinned? Oh, there it is. Cloud pinned it. So the Discord's pinned. It's in there. It's going to be in the top. There's going to be a text stream section up there. So there are going to be links in there. Yeah. So this will be in there too when I upload this into YouTube. But anyways, so now that this has been pushed, I wonder if it's going to show up in the website. It does. Right? So my domain, tangohunter.com, boom, the content's there. There's nothing in here, just the 2 images. Right? So no other content, because that's all we've done so far. But it's there. It's live. So because I have GitHub pages set up, because I linked it to my domain, every time I push updates, those updates, it looks like they're almost immediate. Like that was within a minute. Maybe within 5 minutes because I was talking. So, yeah, that's neat. That was cool. I like that. So, but yeah, so like this desktop app is really, really neat. It's really good for first time users. It's really good for people that have multiple people working on the same project, because then you can see conflicts and you can decide what you want to do about those conflicts. Sometimes it's better to reach out to the person and say, hey, we have a conflict, what do you want to do? And again, the links to everything I've shown you guys, all these will be in the Discord. I'll put them in the text section. So let's get some more, let's do some styling, I guess. Let's get, let's do some navigation links first. Alright, so we want a home button, which I guess we don't really need one because, yeah, we'll put it in there. href. Alright, and this is going to be index.html, right? I'm going to call it home. So we're going to have a bunch of different ones in here, but what I should do is I think it's ID equals top, right? Can I do it that way? Or do I have to do this? I think I have to do this. Yeah, I have to do that. So what I just did was I created a link, right? So, and with an ID of top, right? So let's say we're at the footer, right? And we want to do a link, and we're gonna have it do top, right? So, and then we'll just type in back to top, right? And then we'll save this real quick. Let's go to the Explorer, open the live server, right? So back to top. I did something wrong there. That one works. Can I get Twitch top? I did that wrong. I will look that up later. Maybe it's not the ID. Maybe it's just... Is it A equals top? So now I want to... Nope. I'll figure it out later. Actually, you know what? I don't have to figure it out later. Let's just Google it. Right, so... How to make HTML to top of page. Right? And... Oh, so you have to do all that. So just pound top. Hashtag top. Let's see if that worked. It's been a while since I've done this. Yeah, that's what it is. Back to the top. Now it's not going to the front of this image, which is kind of weird, because I have that in there before the image. Let's see. Close that back out. Yeah, I have this before this image, but it shows up after it. And then this one I have before this image, and before the buttons, but it scrolls to after it. I wonder what that is. But yeah, that's how you do it. So you have top. And then you would have other things in here to scroll to. So we have top. We're going to have one for about. It's not going to be HTML. I will have to look it up later to edit how to do links within the document. It's been a long time since I've done this. We're going to have about. Alright, and then we're going to do... Let me pull up my little Trello row, my little notepad. I have it on my other screen. Actually, we'll just do it this way. Nope. Trello. My Trello board. Index HTML. Right. Main contents. There we go. About, schedule, socials, tech, gaming interests, and support. Right. So I'm gonna move this over here to this screen. Right. So I know exactly what I'm linking, and I didn't even link this one right. If I do something wrong, correct me. I'm not perfect. All right. So we're gonna do about. We'll do schedule. Which really the schedule will probably be in the about section. We'll figure that out. We're gonna do href equals, and we'll do one for socials. Nope, don't capitalize. I can't correct you unless it's super obvious. Yeah, but you can see when I have spaces that don't need to be there. So socials, right? And I might change some of this later. We're gonna have one for tech, but that one will probably be last. So let's do commands. That's a good one. Jesus. equals commands. Oh my god. Commands. Alright. You know what? Schedule will probably include. Yeah, maybe we'll see. I'm gonna put gaming. Let's do tech next. href equals tech dot html. Right, and then this is gonna be tech. So maybe we'll do tech nights. I don't know. We'll figure that out. So like now we have like a basic navigation structure set up. If we go to the web page itself, it looks like this, right? You see how it turns purple when you click on it? This is default. We don't like that. We're going to change that. We're also going to change our background, right? But at least you kind of see, like, we're going to have 6 different links in here. Only 2 of them will be actual links. That'll be the home page and the tech page. The other 4 will be on this web page, and it's going to scroll to them. So it's going to scroll to the about section. It'll scroll down to schedule, which I'll include like games that I play in the schedule. Socials will have like my Discord link, maybe a couple of links in there. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. Probably my Discord and probably like my YouTube, because that's where my tech streams will be posted. Commands are kind of obvious, and then we'll have a tech page dedicated to technology posts that'll have links to the YouTube videos in that as well. Which actually we can just create that real quick. So we'll open up the terminal again, right? Change directory to the Twitch directory. All right, we're going to make directory and call it pages, right? And then we're going to code tech.html, right? That's going to create the file. We'll just really quick put the comment in here. Title tech.html author. There we go. I can't talk. Tag Hunter. Date created today. Date modified is also going to be today, right? And then description, right? And this is going to be call to action page for tech-based streams posted on YouTube, right? So this can basically have either a drop-down menu I might do just to keep everything kind of compact, or I might have like cards with individual streams with descriptions in them. Either way, I'll figure that out later. And then the main thing to do is going to be our HTML, and this is done with the boilerplate, right? So in the extensions, you do HTML and you want a boilerplate. There's different ones here. I personally like this HTML5, right? This HTML5 boilerplate works really well too. Here, I'll show you, right? So there's HTML5, right? And there's HTML5 boilerplate, right? This one has a lot of stuff in it that I don't need. Like description content. This is kind of cool because like you don't have to type out the thing here. Oh, this one I didn't even include. So this basically is going to tell you if the browser you're on is not compatible, like Internet Explorer, it's going to make it Edge, right? So everything else should be UA compatible. So I don't know if that probably doesn't make much sense to non-tech people, but so this is actually useful to keep because it puts everything in there. Whereas this is very basic, it just has the very basic structure. what it doesn't have is this part, which I don't know if that's necessary, but I like to include it. So yeah, we'll actually go with the one that's got all the extra shit in it. Alright, we can delete that. That's weird. It like put half of the tag in, like the opening tag for a code comment into it. We're gonna copy this. We're gonna put this in our index page. We'll put it right there. Right. This one we don't need. We will link this one. So, this tech page, this tech HTML, is inside a folder called Pages. Which here, let's save it real quick. Oh, I made it in the wrong directory. I didn't change directory when I created it. That's okay. I can just select it and put it in Pages. Yes, we're gonna move it. There we go. Now it's in the right folder, right? What I should have done after I created the Pages directory, make directory Pages, I should have done change directory in here. Just like done CD to Pages, right? And then done code tech HTML, right? That would have created the file in the right spot. So there we go. So now it's in the right spot. So we actually, to get to our styles sheet, which is in a styles folder, I have to get out of the Pages folder and then get into the styles folder and then access styles.css. Right, so the way that we do that in a link on a local directory is we do .. / right? So the .. / tells it go back a directory, right? So if you go back 3 directories, then you do .. / 3 directories, right? So now I've gone back to my Tango Hunter folder, right? But we're not trying to do all that. We just want to go back 1 folder and then go forward into these styles, right? Styles folder, and then that file, styles.css, right? And so now that'll link that file properly. It'll link it to this right here, right? And the same thing for the script, right? So if we want to go back one directory, we want to go into the scripts folder, and then we want this file, right? Hopefully that makes sense. So, and actually, since we're going to be using asynchronous functions, this should have this in here too. Yeah. There we go. See, that HTML5 boilerplate is actually really useful, because otherwise it wouldn't have worked in this one. Or maybe it would have, I don't know. But I don't think it would have, because we're going to do asynchronous functions, because to do API calls we have to do promises. And the same thing for my timeout functions that I'm going to use, because we're going to create a couple functions and then we're going to call those functions multiple times within other functions. So yeah, that's what that means. That will make more sense when we get to it. I promise. I promise it will make sense. Tango Hunter. Keep the same title, just for, I don't know, make it easy, I guess. Body. We'll save this. We're not going to put any content in this one yet. Because what we're going to do in the body tag, what I'm going to do is this index HTML, I'm going to create the whole thing first, right? And then I'm going to copy everything from the top of where it says body down to the right here, right above main, right? And then I'll paste that in there, and then I'll do the footer, right? So the main content will be blank, in tech HTML, and then I'll just build the main content. So we're just going to copy and paste. It'll make it a lot easier. And then all I'm going to have to do is just change the link, like my navigation in there. And this one is actually going to be // pages. No, not even .. It's just going to be pages. Pages/tech. There it is. Because I don't have to go back directory, because index.html is at the base of my directory. So that was the other thing I wanted to mention. Folder structure. So when you're designing a website, structure matters. If you put all of your files in your root directory, so like if everything was just in this one folder for Twitch, all my images, all my pages, scripts, styles, and everything else, what would happen is you'd have, like, this list would be like now this list this long, right? But let's say you have a website with like 12 different pages, and each page has like 10 different images, and you've got different scripts, and you've got different CSS files for different things. It gets very convoluted very, very quickly. So you want to keep things in folders, keep things organized, and then your main page has to be called index.html, right? Your landing page, your first file has to be index.html. It has to be. And the reason it has to be that is because if you go into Twitch, or not Twitch, I'm sorry, if you go into GitHub, I should have, there it is. I can't type. Twitch. Alright, so when you create a web page, or when you create the page's settings, right, when you create the branch, it's going to look in the root folder, right? So the main branch, which we've already gone over, pre-production and testing and production branches. So you're going to have it in your main branch, the root directory, so at the very base of the structure. If you wanted to put it in like another folder, like if you wanted your index file to be in there, you can do pages, right? It's telling me no folder found for whatever reason. Or maybe you have like a docs folder, whatever, I don't care. You would select that, right? But if it's not index.html, it won't work, right? And you can learn more about configuring the publishing source for your site right here. So I don't know how else to describe that. It just, if it's not index.html, if you name anything else, it will not work, right? So index.html is going to be the landing page. The other thing about GitHub is it'll tell you all of your different languages you're using and how much of the content.
Oh, hi, thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
Hey, Delta Trader, thank you for lurking. So we can just go ahead and close it out. Alright, so we've got a basic navigation structure. We've got our header image. Thank you for doing the shout out for Delta Trader. Delta Trader is also really big into tech. He does a lot of 3D printing, and he designs his own stuff for his website that he sells on Etsy. Like, he, not his own website, but he designs his own, he's doing keychains right now, or he was doing keychains the other day. But yeah, he sells on Etsy, and he's been streaming how he creates stuff in the program that he uses. I think he uses Shaper, I believe, whereas I use Fusion 360, so it's a little different. But it's still pretty cool. So I would check him out if you get a chance. Thank you so much, you're too kind. See, you're listening. You said lurk, but you're listening. No, you're good, man. If I was incorrect in any of that, just let me know. But yeah, he's pretty cool. I can lurk and lie at the same time. That's true, you can. Absolutely. So let's do different sections in our main file here, our main section here, main content. Should I do sections or divs? Let's do divs. We're gonna do divs. So div is like a divider, right? It's a container that is going to hold content. It's not always a mutable. That's true. Alright, so a div is like a container that you're going to store other content in, and you can nest divs within each other, right? So if I go... Let me see how I might do this. We're gonna do one for our live banner, right? So we're just gonna give this one an ID of live dash banner. The naming conventions for giving things IDs and classes, the standard in HTML is gonna be no capitalization, and every word is gonna be separated by a dash, right? So when I do ID dash live banner, because when I go into my JavaScript, I'm going to tell the JavaScript, hey, in the document, which is going to be this document because the JavaScript is going to be linked here, in the document, get element by ID. So it's going to say, it's going to look for an ID, and it's going to say live banner, right? Live dash banner, and it's going, and then once it has information, then I'll be able to tell it what to do with this div, with this content in this, that's going to be within this divider, right? Within this container. Hopefully that makes sense, right? You can also do classes, but IDs are easier for things that you want to be very specific. So since we're going to do a live banner, it's going to be an ID, not a class. And then I can also style the ID in the CSS. So I can change the colors. I can make it pulse, like 2 different shades of red. So it kind of draws people's eyes to it, like, oh, he's live now, let's click the link and watch now, right? So like that's the idea there. And then right below that, we'll do like our hero section, right? So hero is like a call to action. So even though like live banners are call to action, I want the actual live stream to show up in a window underneath that. But we're gonna do the terminal window next to it, right? So we're gonna have the terminal window and the live stream next to each other. And then if we're not live, we don't want to show we don't want to show the live stream, right? Because we're not live, it's not going to be, we don't want to show a video that doesn't exist, right? So we're going to do a div, and then we're going to give this one a class, right? So we'll do class equals, and this one's going to be, we'll do flex, right? We'll just call it flex, right? And we'll get into flex and grid probably next week when we actually start doing some of the coding for this stuff, some of the styling, right? So we'll do a flex class, right? And then we're going to nest more divs inside this. So we're going to have div, and we're going to give it a class, right, of terminal. We want to look at terminal window. I think that kind of looks cool, right? And then we have a terminal header, right? So if you think about a window, there's always a header at the top that tells you what it is, right? So if you look, which mine, yeah, so if you look at mine like this right here, this whole thing will be the terminal header. So div class, and it's going to be terminal dash header, right? In the terminal header, we're going to do a couple spans. So I'm coding in Windows, but I want to say somewhere in the ballpark of like 60% of people who are full-time developers use Apple products. So to make it look more like a terminal window, I'm going to use what the Apple users would see. And anyone who's a developer would recognize it like right away. So if we do a span, right? And if you think about a bridge goes over water, right? So it's like it's span over water. I don't know if that makes sense. A span is in line, right? Like a bridge is in line, like it goes across the water, a straight line. So a span is an element that is in line. So if you have multiple spans, they will go across the web page instead of like down, like scrolling down, right? We're gonna give it a class, and we're gonna do a red dot. So red dash dot, right? And it's gonna be empty. We're not gonna put anything in it. Actually, no, we'll do just red and dot. We'll make it really, really easy, right? We'll do another one. And actually, I'll just copy. Why don't I just copy this? Control C, Control V, Control V. All right, we'll just change this one from red to yellow. This will make more sense when we start coding, when we start styling it. But you can kind of see, like, so there's on the Mac, there's a red dot, a yellow dot, and then a green dot, right? What's up, King Creeper? Last seen playing Witch Stall, that was yesterday. I don't think you streamed today. Did you stream today? Alright, and then the last one. So all these elements are going to be in line with each other, right? So the last one is actually going to be the title, right? It's going to be terminal dash title. You're in a hospital. What? Are you okay? You took some meds. Dude, what? Are you alright, dude? We're just gonna give it a title of terminal. And give it the little squiggly line. Yeah, no, it's not squiggly. There it is, there's a squiggly line. Alright, so these 4 spans are going to be in the header, right, for the terminal. So then if we come underneath the header, we create another div. Creeper, I'm serious, I want to know. You alright, dude? You can talk to me. We're going to do a class. And if you don't want to say it in chat, that's fine. You can DM me if you want. I'm always available. So we want the terminal body. Terminal dash body. Right. Tore a muscle in my stomach. Oh, dude, that sucks. My AI bot is like being extra for no reason. Anyways, in our terminal body, we're going to do 2 different span elements. Right, so the first one, we're going to give it an ID, because we're going to style it with our JavaScript, right? So we're going to use our ID. So it's going to be terminal dash text, right? And the second one we do, we're going to do a span, and it's going to have a class cursor. Let me see. I thought I was having kidney issues again, but it was a tore stomach. So did you actually tear like one of your abs, or was it an actual muscle in your stomach? Like the organ, the stomach organ. Take care for now, Tango. Much love. See you when I see you. Yeah, of course. we are getting up on 2 hours. But the main thing is I wanted you guys to see the basic content structure. So like, if we have our main here. Oh, hold on. No, we're gonna leave. We'll leave that the way that it is. We'll hit enter, and then we'll do a separate one. There we go. In your stomach. Oh, that sucks. I mean, either way it would suck, but like, imagine in your stomach would make it difficult to eat. Whereas if it was just your abs, it'd probably just be difficult to laugh or to sit in certain conditions. Bet you're ready for D&D. Hope your muscle recovers soon. D&D's fun. I don't care who you are, D&D is fun. If you've never done tabletop games, you're missing out. So, I was lifting an HVAC unit and something torn. You're supposed to have help with those. I might know a thing or two about HVAC. I've done a couple installs on that too. I have probably too much experience in the general construction and the trades. You doing R32 systems now? R32's old. They don't even make R32 anymore. Oh, no, you're right. R22 is old. My bad. See? That tells you how outdated I am. R22 is old. R32 and R454 is the new. Yeah, so when I did it, it was R22 was being phased out, and they were getting into the, I want to say H114 or something like that. Yeah, 410A. There you go. 410A. Yeah, 410A was coming out. They were like, oh, it's new super efficient units, 410A, and then all the 410A stuff had issues. Like, they had more issues than R22. R22 was like old reliable. But 410A was also supposed to be more environmentally friendly, and they were switching that to try and help heal the ozone. So, anyways, it's a different subject, but yeah. R32 is a mix of R410 and 22. Okay. That's pretty neat. So they're trying to like, it's HCDC. See, that's a new one for me. I don't know what HCDC means. Anyways, I kind of want to, before I end this, I want to style this terminal a little bit. Just so you guys can kind of see what I want to do with this. So, before I even do that, let's put our dark theme into here. So we're going to do another meta tag. Right, and we need to name it our color theme. So we're going to give it a name, and we're going to call it color-theme. Okay, but we need to tell it what the color theme does. Right, so the color theme is going to style our content, right, based upon either a dark theme or a light theme. Right, there's a space there. Right, so there's nothing connecting dark and light. These are two different themes. Right, we do the same thing in, and we need a closing bracket, so space / closing bracket. All right, so if you look at like our classes, see how these have a space? Like, these are two different classes, red and dot, right? Because we're gonna make a dot, and we're gonna make it, style it to be red, and we're gonna make a dot, and we're gonna style it to be yellow, right? So on and so forth. So we have like the little red X to close like a Mac window, the yellow one to like minimize it, or the green one to like full screen it. Which I think those are what the three of them do. I don't remember. But anyways, so like we're gonna style that. But that's why you give it classes, right? So I can tell it, hey, everything that has the dot class, you're gonna make it this size and have this kind of border and be this color, and everything that's styled with the red class, we're going to make it this shade of red, you know, that kind of stuff, or green or yellow. Everything with a terminal title class will be this color, right, with this font. So what I need to do, now that I have the content light and dark, is come into my styles folder, and we need to actually create our theme, right, because I want my colors to actually look right. I'm just going to copy them. So, good night, black and yellow, have fun. Yeah, I'm with Cloud on that one, have fun. So, I'm just going to copy my theme colors, because, and I'll explain them to you after they're pasted. And I also need to add my code comment in here, so let me, hold on. So CSS code comments are just a / with a star, right? And then to end the comments is a star with another /, right? Did you see everything turned gray, right? Everything's gray, but then like we add the slash in and it lights it back up, right? So title styles.css author Tango Hunter. Why don't I just take this? I should just do this for any of the ones that I do in the future, right? And then description. Style sheet, not shoot, sheet for the Twitch website, right? So, because it's going to be a website for me, it's going to host some of my content and stuff, right? So that's kind of why I give it that description. Anyways, so we've kind of gone over like the universal selector, right? But then we have root. So root's almost pretty much the same thing, but this kind of gives us our color theme. So like background main, background secondary, right? Because we're gonna have, I want to have different shading, right? Our main, our accent color, so our main and our secondary, are our text colors, main and secondary, and then what color do we want our borders to be, right? And I can add these and I can change these values. And the reason they're set up this way is they're set up as variables, right? So when I am adding more elements to this document, if I just tell it, hey, use the background main color, right? If I need to change this color, I can just change it here and not change it 300 times for everything that uses that color, right? It also allows the JavaScript, when someone changes the theme, if I have it used as a variable, if they're on dark theme, it'll use this. If they switch to a light theme, it'll use this, right? So it serves two purposes. One, it makes it really easy for me to write the rest of the document, and two, people are able to use a different color theme. So now, if I save this and I open with live server, it did not do it. Oh, you know why? Because I don't have the body tag in here yet. Alright, so if I do body, right, and then we got our brackets, so our squiggly brackets, open and close. The reason it has a little error right here is because I don't have any content here yet, right? So we have to add some content. So we want background color. Oh, not background. We want background dash color. All right, and we're gonna use a variable. So variable. All right, and then we can select which one we want to use, right? We want our background main, right? And then we want our color. Now our color is our text color, right? Right, so color is going to be variable, and it's going to be text main, right? And you have to do the semicolon after it. If you don't, it's going to think you're carrying on to another line. Now that I have our background set, if I go to index.html, open with, and I have autosave turned on, so every time I stop typing, it saves the document, so I don't have to like manually save. Open with live server. If I pull this over, now our theme is kind of in here, right? What I want to do now is actually set the width, right? So max dash width. All right, and we're gonna do, I think 1600 pixels is good. Let's see what that looks like. Refresh. Why did it not save? Or maybe because I don't have it centered. I bet you that's why. Let's do display. We want flex, right? Flex is gonna make everything horizontal, right? But then if I do flex direction and I do column, it'll make it all a column, right? So now, open a live server. It stayed there. What are those two dots right there? Those are my buttons. None of the buttons I don't have styled. That's funny. Margin auto, and then text line, but we don't want left, we want center, right? So now, boom, now it's centered, right? Yeah, those are my two buttons. They're just, they don't work because I don't have anything in there yet. Where is, oh, back to top's way up here now. So now it's putting stuff in the right order, right? So those are before my image, so they're showing up right here, right before the image, right? But now, like, this would be centered, but like these two buttons are in the wrong spot. They need to be up here. I will fix that, right? And actually, one of them is going to be display none while the page is this big, right? But this kind of gives you like a better look. Like you can actually see what we're doing here. Before I end, I just want to style the terminal window, right? So let's do the terminal next. You know what else I need to do? The font. So we want font family. I want to do like a monospace. What is? Hold on, let me look it up real quick. I want to do monospace, but I want to do something a little different. Let's do, yeah, let's do, hold on, we'll do two different, we'll say, so let's do, does that not come up? It didn't come up automatically. We'll do that one, and we'll do monospace as a secondary. So if the person doesn't have Consolis on their computer or their browser, they will have monospace, right? And then,
Oh, stretch. Oh my god. Ooh. Ooh. Okay. Stretch time is over.
all right, let me do a stretch. Okay. You can also set the font size, but the default I believe is 16 pixels, so I'm not going to mess with that. I feel like that's a good default text size. But now, since I changed the text color, let's see how it looks. I'm just curious. Yeah, it kind of gives this like terminal look right here. And my links do too, but my links kind of look terrible right now because they're not styled right. We're gonna style those next week. Alright, so let's do the terminal window. I want to do the terminal before we do anything else. Alright, so we're gonna do, hell yeah. Yeah, like the terminal, I'm so proud of the terminal window, dude. The way that I went in my testing environment. So I'm actually just gonna copy some of my code. Actually, I'll just write it out. We'll just write it out. So you have to do so in the anytime it's an HTML tag, you can just type out the tag and not put any kind of code in front of it. So like for body, you see how it says like that it's inside the HTML tags for body, right? But if I do a class, I've got to do a dot in front of it. That lets the CSS know you're doing a class. So if I do the terminal class, open and closing squiggly brackets, right? Now I can put the what's it called? The code in here, right? So the first thing we're gonna do is put a background, right? We want the background color. So hold on, just background? Is it? It's gonna be our main. Oh, we're gonna give it a border. So let's do a border radius. Border radius, right? And so I don't like to style stuff in hard pixels, like how I did up here with the body. I did 1600 pixels, right? That's the hard limit. What I like to do for any content in the page is I like to use what's called rems. And rems are a unit of measure based upon the size of the text on the screen. So if the default size of the text is 16 pixels, then one rem will be 16 pixels, right? But let's say the person is older, or they have a hard time seeing and they make the default text size bigger, then this will allow my radius on the elements that I use rem on to be bigger as well, so that everything scales properly, right? Whereas if I use a hard limit, if they increase text size, my border radius is the same, right? So if I wanted it to be like, let's just say 0.5 rem, that would be 8 pixels, because it's half a rem and one rem is 16 pixels because that's the default text size, right? So now this will be 8 pixels, but if their text size is bigger, then my radius will be bigger on the terminal window, and it'll flow smoother. It'll scale with the size of the text that the user has set, but the default's gonna be 16 pixels if they didn't say anything. Or it'd be smaller if like somebody likes to have super small text they can read, so they have more content to read on their page and they have really good eyesight. Anyways, so we're gonna give it a we're gonna make it flex, right? So let's do display flex, right? And then we want everything to be centered, so we're gonna align items centered, right? And then the last thing is we want, no, that's gonna be in our header. I'm sorry. Hold on, our header is gonna be like that. We want a box shadow. I'm getting mixed up between the header and the terminal itself. We want a box shadow, so we don't want any shadow at the top of the box, right? Imagine like the sun being at the top left. So, and when you do any kind of margins or shadows, you always start at the top and work your way clockwise. So it's the first value is top, the second one's right, the next one's the bottom, and the last one is left, right? So if we have a sun at the top left, then our shadow should be on the right and the bottom, right? So what I would want to do is, let's say 0 for the top, the right side, let's do 0.6 rem, right? That'll be about 10 pixels, and the bottom we want to be like, I want to say 1.5, 1.6. We'll do 1.6 rem, right? So it'll be more of a shadow on the bottom, right? And now our shadow, we want it to be like kind of a black color because our default's a dark theme. Even on the light theme, we want it to be like a darker shadow, right? Because that just kind of makes sense. So what I'm going to do is, instead of using our default variables, I will do like RGBA, right? And I'll just make everything black. So for black, it's going to be zeros. So 0, 0, 0. And the fourth one, the A, is our alpha channel, right? And it is percentage based. So if I wanted 100%, it would make it pure black, right? But if I wanted it to be kind of like a see-through, so it wasn't quite as dark, then I would use less. So like 50% would be half as black, and it would kind of fade out towards the edges. So I want it to be a little less than that. I don't want it to be quite so harsh. Let's do like 40%, right? So 0.4. And then that'll be it for like the box shadow. And then any overflow, we want to hide. I don't want any text to make, I don't want anyone to have to scroll inside the terminal window element, if that makes sense. Like, you know how people will build websites and you can scroll up and down, but you can also scroll left and right? Well, you can make that in elements too. Like any kind of divider element, you can make scroller windows inside those elements, and I don't want any scrolling, so we're going to do overflow hidden, right? And then we will make sure that nothing is going to overflow within the body of our terminal window by doing a word wrap. So that will make more sense in like 1 minute. All right, and then we're going to make sure that there is a margin here. We want the terminal windows to not be butting up against one another or other elements like our navigation links, right? So we're going to give it a margin, and we're going to give it, we'll give it 1 rem, right? Just make it 16 pixels. So that's like our terminal itself. So to kind of give you an idea on what that would look like, it's really hard to see because there's another content in here, but it's like right here. Where's this terminal? There's like a shadow underneath it, but it's so hard to see because I have nothing else styled inside of there. Let's fix that. Let's fix that right now. Alright, so the first thing in our terminal window is the header itself, right? So we have terminal-header. What's up, Jacksface? How you doing? Terminal header. Oh, hold on. There you go, terminal header. This is gonna have a lighter background. So let's do our secondary, right? Let's see, maybe I'll make it lighter. I don't like that. I feel like that's too dark. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I think that might be too dark. Alright, so again, we want some padding within the header itself. Alright, so we're going to do 0.5 rem. That's going to be 8 pixels. Last playing God of War, Son of Sparta. Okay, that's what's up. I got a soft spot for God of War. It's a good game. This one's going to have a display of flex, right? So what I was doing before, I was thinking like the elements. So those dots, we want them to be in line. We want them to be next to each other, right? But because I put a padding of 5 rem, 0.5 rem, they'll be 8 pixels apart, right? So they're not going to be right on top of each other. And then we want to align everything. So what this is going to do, so align items isn't going to, we're going to center it. What's going to happen, oh, hold on, align items, I spelled it wrong. What align items does is it doesn't center them like horizontally, it centers them vertically, right? So if the padding is 0.5 rem, that means if the text is 16 pixels, there will be 5 pixels or 8 pixels of blank space to the left, to the top, the bottom, and the right side of them, right? So what this means is that the text that's in the center of that will be floating in the exact middle with that 0.5 rem. So there'd be exactly 8 pixels above it and below the text, right? So it just gives it a cleaner look. And then we want a gap. So the gap is going to be between each element. So let's make that like 0.4 rem. So I don't think it needs to be 8 pixels. That'll be closer to maybe 6. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. All right. Now we have the dots, right? So we have 3 different dots. So let's do dot. And we're going to make them have a width and a height. Let's do 0.6 rem. And the same thing for the height. Can I spell? Yeah, there we go. Oh, hold on. You see how it's not, see how it's white? I forgot to do that. And now it'll work. Right. So we'll make the height 0.6 rem. And we're going to give it a border radius of 50%. Right? No colors. I don't want solid lines. I just want it to be round. Right? Which I can do 0.5 or you can do 50%. Either way it works. Right? Either way that'll work. That'll be for all 3 dots.
There can be only
Now if I red, I don't have a red color selected in my colors. Who got that? King Creeper got the emote reading. That's what's up. So what I want to do with the red is change the background color, right? I don't want anything else in there but the background color. So we're just going to go background and we'll do red. We'll just see how it looks, right? And realistically, I can just do this. Since it's only going to have that, right? I only have that in there, right? And now I'm going to copy basically the same code, but we'll do yellow because we have the red dot, the yellow dot, and it's going to be background, and it's going to be yellow. Boom. Right. And the last one is going to be green. So dot green, open closing brackets, put the spaces in there so it's easy to read. We'll make the background green. Boom. Alright, so and then we have the terminal title. So dot terminal dash title. I really hope, is that, hold on. Let me double check. Terminal header. I got that terminal title. Oh, it's terminal dash title, right? Do I have that in there right? Terminal dash, yep, I do. Okay, cool. Alright, so that's going to be running margin left. Because I don't want it to be right next to those dots, right? I want to give it like a little bit more space. So let's go with like 0.7 rem. So we'll give it like not quite 16 pixels, right? But we want more than 8. So, and then we'll make it color. And we want it to be our main color themes. Let's do, let's make it our main color. Text, no, hold on. It's going to be dark. So we're not going to do that. But I don't want to be pure white, so we're going to do like an off-white. So let's do a hex code. Let's make it dark. So we're looking... FB8A7 should be dark. Or not dark, but like a shade of gray. Yeah. That's a good shade of gray, I think. And then the font size, right? So if I don't want it to be the full height, like of 16 pixels, I want it to be a little smaller because I made the dots to be 0.6 rem, right? So I don't want it to be 16 pixels, have the dots be super tiny. So I should make the text a little bit smaller so the dots aren't super tiny next to them, right? Next to the text. So instead of being 16 pixels, let's make it a little shorter. So we'll go like 12 pixels, right? So 8.8 rem. And that's a guess. That might not be entirely accurate. All right, and the last thing that I need to style in the terminal is the terminal body, right? Terminal dash body. Okay. All right, so this one we're gonna have padding. I want padding inside of it to be 1 full rem. Right. I want 16 pixels of padding in there. The color needs to be a green color, right? So we want the font color to be like a green color, and I don't want it to be the same as our variable colors because the terminal color is not going to change, right? So to get a green color, we're going to use a hexadecimal, but so green doesn't contain any red, right? So the first two digits for green are going to be 0 because there's no red in 0. Or there's no, yeah, like the red values are 0, right? Because there's no red, right? And since we want it to be full green, FF, right? So full brightness on the green side, right? And we don't want any blue. Well, we want some blue, but not much, right? So, like that should be green. Maybe. That looks kind of tealish. We'll see. We'll see. Thank you for the lurk, Claudia. Let's do a minimum height. Min dash height. I can't spell anything. Alright, and we want it to be, let's just do 120 pixels. I don't really like doing hard numbers like that, but since I want it to look nice, we're gonna do 120. Alright, so our white space, we want to pre-wrap it. So instead of pre-wrap, we'll do pre-line. Hey honeybees, thank you for checking in. I appreciate it. You were playing Arc Raiders, that's what's up.
There can be only
So
one!
the reason we do pre-line instead of pre-wrap on our white space, so pre-wrap basically when the text that you put inside of it gets to the end of the element, it would start in the line, right? But sometimes you get a big blank space in the front of a paragraph. I don't want that because it's a terminal window. I want them all to be on the same line, right? I don't want it to look like a paragraph. And then thank you for the hydrate. And then like the last thing I want to do, I'll do that later. Let's just get this part done because this has gone on 2.5 hours, which is kind of long for dry content like this. Let's open a live server so we can see what the terminal window is going to look like. If I bring it over, so if I go to like the light theme, which is not active yet, it should be the same color. But you see, we've got like these colors are too bright. They don't look right. The rest of it looks like a terminal window. So let's go back in here. And we're going to change these. So it's not, instead of just typing red, let's like make it an actual value. So we want full red, right? A little bit green and very little blue. That should be good red. And then we'll do the same thing for like the yellow. So yellow's between green and red, so it's going to be basically full red and a good amount of blue. So let's do, or not blue, green, and then almost no blue. That should be good yellow. Let's see. I think that's pretty close to what I want. It's not quite so bright, which is good. All right, and then the last one is going to be our green. So just put a little tiny bit of red in there. We want it to be mostly green with a little hint of blue. And that should be kind of a dull green. Yeah, it's not that dull. But it's not like super bright. That's almost an orange yellow. And that's a soft pastel red. I think that'll be what I want. Refresh. That looks better, I think. They still look a little bit bright, but it looks better. So now, let's see how it would look if I did it on... Let's see what happens if I change the color. Instead of that variable, let's see if I change the background to that color, right? So we'll come here. So the terminal window stayed the same, right? You see the shadow. So it's kind of neat. Back to top. And of course it scrolled down. That's funny. But now, so now we got like a little terminal window in here. And then if we want to see how the text is going to look inside of it, let's go ahead and we'll change this back to our variable and background main. So what I'll do, just for temporary, we're going to do terminal text, right? And we'll just say Tango Hunter is the best mid streamer out there, because I'm mid. There we go. We'll go with that. I'm a good mid streamer, right? We'll load it. So it's got like this kind of like greenish look, but it's centered, right? So we're gonna fix that, but we're not gonna fix it right now. So glad I know you, dude. I don't think I'm a great streamer. I think I do alright. I like to have fun. But I think that's like an okay green for the text color for a terminal window. We're going to fix it so it's left aligned. I don't know why it centered it. I think it's because I think it inherited. Yeah, it inherited this right here. Text line center. So I need to come in and do text line left. There we go. Now it's actually looks right. So now when I add more lines, because it's too wide right now. So what I'll do, I want to fix it before I end stream. I want it to look right. So what I'm going to do, we're going to add a second one. Control C, Control V, right? And this is why you space things out, right? So within our flex, we've got one terminal there, we got one terminal there, and then the end of our flex element, right? So one terminal, two terminals. And you see how I got like, now I know main content starts here, right? I'm not going to label like the terminals like that. I think it's silly to put comments after every single thing, but at least like the main stuff is highlighted and like the footer and everything else, because this navigation is going to be much bigger than this when we get to our mobile side of things. And even like this stuff will get a little bit bigger because I'm going to add more stuff in here to make these buttons work properly and to be styled properly. But now we have like 2 terminals, right? So we open it up and put them this way. I might change, because now I have to rewrite all of my, because I put it here in the body. I will take this out, right? And so what I'll do is in the flex container, we'll make the display flex. We'll do it here. Display flex, and then flex direction. Instead of column, we want, no, we'll keep it the same. Hold on, because flex makes it side by side, right? But what we do want is we want a margin from, well, we already have a margin here. Let's just do a gap between the elements of 1 rem and see how that looks. Yeah, but you see now, like, they're not the full width of the screen. What I could do, just to make them look better, is give them like percentages, maybe. I don't know, I'll figure that out later. But at least you kind of get like the idea, like how they're gonna look side by side. So that gets the idea out there. We're gonna go ahead and end stream though, because we're over 2.5 hours now, and it's like really dry content, and my throat is starting to hurt. So a few different things going on. Thank you for the words of encouragement, guys. That I'm being silly. I appreciate it, and you rewarded me. That's awesome. But my PNG tuber's not even up. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and end stream. Any suggestions on who I should rate out to? Anybody got anything out there? Any feelers? Because I don't have any Twitch streams up because I wanted to focus on this. Head pats. I appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. Gibby still alive? Alright. Let me open up Chrome. Hold on. So, twitch.tv. And then let's go to creator dashboard. I like to do it through the creator dashboard so that I actually spell the name right, because I don't always spell it right. How does Gibby spell their name? Are they in the Discord? Because more than one came up. Oh, Gibby Gaming. Okay. There we go. Thank you. I appreciate that. We got a couple of raid messages there. If you're subbed, it'll be the animated one from me. If you're not subbed, it'll be the one from my AI bot. And I appreciate you guys for being here. It means a lot to me. You guys have a great night, and we'll see you next week.
you for the raid, Tango. Oh my gosh. A double raid? Oh shit, hold on. I'll need a
Someone
dispel.
dispel Gibby.
Bloom swap.
I got it.
Thank you.
Okay, Gloom's done.
What the
Watch the tail,
fuck?
watch the tail.
Motion on
Something's
beam.
going on with y'all's taunt swaps that's causing that to do that.
So here's the thing, is that I misclicked.
Ah!
Oh fuck, I hit the wrong button for that dread breath. I don't know where I'm sending it.
I got pulled by the other dragon.
Alright. Alright.
So I clicked Ezrak, but it actually didn't click Ezrak, and then...
Oh, thanks. Welcome in, Raiders. If you don't know me, my name is Gibby. I play World of Warcraft.
I'll go out on my own.
And I'm from the Pacific Northwest. And I have 2 adorable puppers.
I was thinking the same thing.
I like that